Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, born in 1869, Porbandar, India. A seemingly ordinary beginning, but within this ordinary boy, destiny stirred.
Gandhi's upbringing was steeped in traditional Hindu values. Our family valued truth, nonviolence, and religious tolerance.
These values took root in young Gandhi's heart. They would later shape his life and inspire the world.
My early education was in India. I was a shy student, not particularly brilliant.
At 19, he journeyed to England to study law. England exposed him to Western thought and culture. He qualified as a barrister, yet his heart yearned for his homeland.
I returned to India as a young lawyer, eager to make my mark.
But India under British rule offered limited opportunities. He soon received an offer that would change his life's course. It beckoned him to South Africa, a land riddled with racial discrimination. South Africa in the late 19th century, a land of stark contrasts and deep-rooted divisions. A land of segregation and prejudice, where the color of one's skin determined their place in society. Gandhi, a young lawyer, arrived full of hope and ambition, eager to make a difference in this new land. He was shocked by the deep racial discrimination he encountered, a reality far harsher than he had ever imagined.
Indians, like other non-whites, were treated as inferior citizens, subjected to harsh working conditions and systemic injustice. We faced humiliation and injustice daily, our dignity stripped away by the oppressive laws of the land.
One incident ignited Gandhi's spirit of resistance, a moment that would change the course of his life forever. He was thrown off a train, an act of blatant discrimination that left him humiliated and outraged. His crime? He was Indian, traveling in a first-class compartment reserved for Europeans, a clear violation of the racial segregation laws. This incident awakened a deep sense of injustice within him, a burning desire to fight against the oppressive system. It fueled his determination to fight for equality, to stand up for the rights of the oppressed and marginalized.
I realized the power of collective action, the strength that comes from unity and solidarity. I united the Indian community in South Africa, bringing together people from all walks of life to fight for a common cause. We organized peaceful protests and strikes, using non-violent means to challenge the unjust laws and demand our rights.
Gandhi called his method satyagraha, truth force, a philosophy of non-violent resistance that would become his guiding principle. It was a potent weapon against injustice, a powerful tool to awaken the conscience of the oppressors and inspire the oppressed. Gandhi's struggle in South Africa lasted for 2 decades, a long and arduous journey filled with challenges and setbacks. He faced imprisonment, violence, and oppression, but he never wavered. His spirit remained unbroken, his resolve unshaken. His satyagraha movement began to gain international attention, inspiring people around the world to join the fight for justice and equality. Satyagraha, a Sanskrit word, it means truth force or insistence on truth. It became the cornerstone of Gandhi's philosophy. Satyagraha is not passive resistance, it is active, courageous, non-violent resistance. It requires immense inner strength and discipline. Gandhi believed in the power of truth. He argued that injustice could not withstand the force of truth. Satyagraha aimed to convert the oppressor through love, understanding, and self-suffering. It rejected violence in any form. Satyagraha demands self-discipline. It requires practitioners to control their anger and hatred. It calls for unwavering adherence to truth and non-violence. Gandhi's South African struggle provided fertile ground for Satyagraha to flourish. The world watched in awe as Gandhi led his movement. He faced down discrimination with remarkable courage and resilience. His Satyagraha movement achieved significant victories in South Africa. It paved the way for a long struggle back in his homeland. Section 4, Return to India, A Nation in Chains, 1915. Gandhi returned to India. After spending over 2 decades in South Africa, where he had fought against racial discrimination and injustice, Gandhi was now back in his homeland. His return was not just a homecoming, it was the beginning of a new chapter in India's struggle for independence. He was no longer a young lawyer. The years had transformed him. He had evolved from a barrister into a seasoned leader, a man of profound wisdom and unyielding resolve. He was a seasoned leader. His experiences in South Africa had equipped him with the tools and strategies needed to challenge the might of the British Empire. He was Mahatma, great soul, This title was not just a mark of respect, but a recognition of his spiritual and moral authority. Gandhi's philosophy of non-violence and truth had already begun to inspire millions.
India was a nation in chains. The British had ruled India for centuries, exploiting its resources and people. The once prosperous land was now a shadow of its former self. Centuries of British rule had left their mark. The colonial administration had systematically drained India's wealth, leaving its people impoverished and destitute. Poverty, illiteracy, and oppression were rampant. The majority of Indians lived in abject poverty, with little access to education or basic amenities. The British policies had ensured that the Indian populace remained subjugated and powerless. Gandhi was deeply moved by the plight of his people. He saw firsthand the suffering and hardships faced by the common man. This fueled his determination to fight for their rights and dignity. He traveled the length and breadth of India. From the bustling cities to the remote villages, Gandhi made it a point to connect with people from all walks of life. He believed that understanding their struggles was crucial to leading an effective movement. He listened to the grievances of the people. Whether it was the farmers burdened by heavy taxes or the laborers working in inhumane conditions, Gandhi lent a patient ear to all. He witnessed their suffering firsthand. The stories of pain and resilience he encountered only strengthened his resolve to bring about change. Gandhi knew the time had come for action. He realized that passive acceptance of British rule was no longer an option. The people of India needed to rise and reclaim their freedom.
The British were a formidable force. Their military might and administrative control were unparalleled. They had a well-established system that ensured their dominance over the Indian subcontinent. They controlled the army, the administration, and the economy. The British had a tight grip on every aspect of Indian life, making it seem almost impossible to challenge their authority. Gandhi knew that conventional methods of resistance would be futile. Armed rebellion or violent protests would only lead to more bloodshed and suffering. He needed a different approach. He decided to employ the weapon he had honed in South Africa Satyagraha. This philosophy of non-violent resistance was based on the principles of truth and moral courage. Gandhi believed that through peaceful means, they could awaken the conscience of the oppressor.
India was ready for a leader like Gandhi. The people were yearning for change, and Gandhi's message resonated deeply with them. His return ignited a spark of hope and determination across the nation. His message of truth, non-violence, and self-reliance resonated with the masses. Gandhi emphasized the power of self-discipline and collective action. He urged the people to take pride in their heritage and to stand united against the colonial oppressors. He became the guiding light of India's freedom struggle. His leadership inspired countless individuals to join the movement, and his unwavering commitment to nonviolence set the tone for the entire struggle. He united a nation divided along religious and social lines. Gandhi's inclusive approach brought together people from different backgrounds, fostering a sense of unity and shared purpose. His vision of an independent India was one where all its citizens could live with dignity and freedom.
Section 5. Non-cooperation, a powerful weapon of peace, 1920. This was a time when India was under the oppressive rule of the British Empire, and the Indian people were yearning for freedom and self-governance. Gandhi launched the non-cooperation movement. This was not just a political strategy, but a moral and ethical call to action. It was a movement that sought to awaken the conscience of the Indian people and unite them in their quest for independence. It was a bold and unprecedented move. Never before had such a large-scale, non-violent resistance been organized against a colonial power. Gandhi's vision was clear: to achieve freedom through peaceful means. He called upon Indians to boycott British goods, institutions, and services. This meant that people were to stop buying British products, attending British-run schools, and using British legal systems. The idea was to make the British administration realize that they could not function without the cooperation of the Indian people. He urged them to renounce titles and honors bestowed by the British. This was a significant step, as it involved giving up personal gains and privileges for the greater good of the nation. It was a call to sacrifice and solidarity.
The non-cooperation movement spread like wildfire. From the bustling cities to the quiet villages, the message of non-cooperation resonated with millions. Families discussed it around their dinner tables, and communities came together in support of the cause. Millions of Indians joined the struggle. It was a diverse movement that saw participation from all sections of society. Farmers, workers, students, and even women. who had traditionally been kept out of the political sphere, joined in large numbers. They boycotted British cloth, schools, and courts. The impact was visible everywhere. Markets were devoid of British goods, schools and courts were empty, and the British administration was beginning to feel the pressure. They refused to pay taxes. Gandhi emphasized self-reliance. He believed that true independence could only be achieved if Indians became self-sufficient and stopped relying on British goods and services. He urged Indians to spin their own cloth and promote indigenous industries. The spinning wheel, or charkha, became a symbol of resistance and self-reliance. It was a simple yet powerful tool that represented the larger struggle for freedom.
The British were caught off guard. They had not anticipated such a massive and organized movement. The non-violent nature of the protests made it difficult for them to justify harsh crackdowns. The non-violent nature of the movement made it difficult to suppress. The British were used to dealing with violent uprisings, but this was different. The peaceful protests garnered international attention and support. Gandhi's message of non-violence resonated even with some British officials. They began to see the moral strength of the movement and started questioning the legitimacy of their own rule. The non-cooperation movement marked a turning point in India's struggle for freedom. It showed the world that a determined and united people could challenge even the most powerful empire through peaceful means.
Gandhi's leadership was tested during this time. He had to navigate the complexities of leading a diverse and widespread movement while staying true to his principles of non-violence. The movement sometimes erupted in violence, much to his dismay. Despite his best efforts, there were instances where the protests turned violent, leading to clashes with the police and loss of lives. He believed in the purity of non-violence. For Gandhi, non-violence was not just a strategy but a way of life. He believed that true change could only come through peaceful means. He responded to any outbreak of violence with firmness. He made it clear that violence had no place in the movement and took strict actions to ensure that the protests remained peaceful. He even suspended the movement when it turned violent. This was a difficult decision, but it underscored his commitment to non-violence. Gandhi's unwavering principles and leadership left an indelible mark on India's path to independence.